Welcome to the AI Ireland podcast, your window into the world of AI innovation on the island of Ireland. Join us as we explore how AI is harnessed to tackle both business and societal challenges, revealing the cutting-edge solutions emerging from this vibrant AI community. Don't forget to subscribe for the latest updates and insights in the world of AI. Hello everyone, it's Mark Kelly. I hope you're doing really well wherever you are in the world today. And as part of our AI Ireland podcast, in a run-up to the AI Awards, which are on the 26th November 2024, we are talking about the best application of AI in sustainability. And we have got a finalist, which is EcoEasi's AI. And this is for their work in simplifying supply chain ESG reporting for mid-sized companies and their SME suppliers by leveraging AI to automate and reduce costs. And we have got Muiris O'Dwyer, CEO and co-founder, and Aidan Connolly, co-founder/director of tech for EcoEasi's. Muiris and Aidan, thanks very much for joining us on the show today.
Cheers, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Great to be here.
Muiris, going to start with yourself. So how does EcoEasi's use AI to make ESG reporting easier for small and medium-sized businesses? And what makes your platform different from other ESG reporting tools? Because it's quite a big space now.
It is a big space, and I think it's kind of helpful just to step back a little bit and explain why we're in this space. And I suppose, first of all, ESG reporting stems from the fact that ESG data is the bedrock of ESG reporting. And there's an EU Green Deal, which basically says that what we need from a societal perspective is that everybody starts to report on ESG data. And it comes from the general basic point that what you can measure, you can manage. And that is fundamentally it. So the bedrock of that basic premise is ESG data. And what is happening is that in the European Union in particular, regulation has been introduced, which has made it mandatory to report on ESG data. So if you think about it, it's come from the top down, all this regulation to report on ESG data, but actually at its simplest, the ESG data comes from the bottom up. And EcoEasi's is all about marrying the two together. So the centerpiece of ESG regulation has been, for corporates anyway, is the Corporate Sustainable Reporting Directive. And the Corporate Sustainable Reporting Directive has about 1,200 data points on average that CSRD companies, if I can refer to it as the first acronym that I'll use today, is that they need to get all this data. And one of the things that companies have realized, or that is a centerpiece, is that ESG data is not always within their control. It comes from the supply chain. So many large companies who need to report on their supply chain are getting ESG data from third-party suppliers. And in their supply chain, a huge amount of their suppliers are SMEs. So if you think about the huge burden that has been placed on companies to report on their ESG data, which they are going to be audited on, it's actually coming from SME suppliers who are providing this information. So the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive has triggered a huge number of requests for ESG data to SME suppliers. And what that has meant is that the EU is cognizant of what is going on, and it's going, right, we need to introduce a framework that better and is more proportionate and brings it all together. So they've introduced this voluntary SME framework, which is aligned with the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. And it is much more proportionate. It only requires 250 basis points, 250 ESG data points in terms of what has to be produced. But even still, it's a huge challenge for SMEs because they are shouldering this burden to collect this information, and they are in the least good position possible to get this information up. So it is a fantastic use case for AI, because AI effectively helps democratize the passing of this ESG information up from the SME suppliers to the CSRD companies. And that's what EcoEasi's is all about. Like, one of the things that I love about AI is that the 150 data points that they need to collect, or the 250 data points that they need to collect, are split between actual quantitative data, but also non-quantitative or qualitative data. And that's where AI steps in and is able to produce the sort of ESG data points that are needed to be reported on. And ultimately, these data points need to be of audit quality. So if you think about how AI collates the information from a multiplicity of sources, so we use in EcoEasy, we use publicly available information, primary information from the SME suppliers themselves, secondary sources, all that. So it's unstructured data, and we bring it together and we try to do it at a low cost so that it's easily attainable for the SMEs who don't have the expertise to understand what's being requested here. I mean, some of the questions are just totally beyond anybody in terms of understanding what it is. So we can actually produce with AI the information to auto-populate the VSME frameworks. We will also then get individual ESG assessments for the SMEs that they can provide to the CSRD suppliers. So that's really important. And also an overall supply chain report. So the CSRD companies can look down and say, okay, right, these are the companies that are within my supply chain, and they can provide the information to us, and here are the things that we can do in order to target and basically reduce, say, for example, their carbon footprint. What are the initiatives that they should be entered into? So what it shows fundamentally is that the CSRD companies are partnering with their SME suppliers, not blocking them out of the supply chain. And that is the great thing about EcoEasy. So these are mandatory reporting requirements. Like they talk about the SME suppliers, it's voluntary. It's not voluntary if you get a request in from one of your largest customers to provide information and that they need to report on it right now. So that's what EcoEasy is all about. It's effectively straddling the two, providing a framework, providing reports, collating the information, and there's significant, huge benefits for both the CSRD company, who's the issuer, that's how we think of them, and also the SME suppliers. And it's bringing the two together. And that's where AI comes in.
Aidan, just going under a little bit further on the hood there from what Muiris is kind of saying, and we could justify why someone needs to go on this journey. But what's the underlying tech?
Mark, we chose to go with Oracle for this. Oracle have brought out recently an AI-driven database, it's Oracle 23 AI. And obviously they have a lot of AI services. They partner with a number of different companies in terms of generative AI. So inbuilt with ready access via the database, we work with Cohere, right? Now, I just need to make clear, so the whole idea is that we bring in all this disparate data from the user, the SME itself, and then from third-party data, as Muiris alluded to. And we try to extract from that the relevant data points that correspond to that client's reporting requirements. However, the user, they ultimately sign off on what the answers to the questions within the reports are. So what we do is we take the data, we pre-populate suggested answers, and then if the client is happy with that, they accept it. Now, obviously, it's kind of key that what we're presenting is accurate. And so we have some back-end methodologies to make sure that what the generative AI and the model is the LLM is proposing is accurate and within the range that would be appropriate for a client of that size, so that we keep boundaries on what the LLM, the model, can actually do.
So this then automatically fills in, I'm guessing like kind of a template or kind of like a questionnaire. I'm just trying to get it in my mind in terms of what that reality looks like, because I can only imagine, trying to collect all this information, input it, when you've got a day job to do, you're not au fait with the acronyms. It's a big undertaking.
It's a huge undertaking. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, but just in the VSME alone, there's over 20 pages on guidance to provide answers to the most basic module. So, and with it come really complicated formulas and reading lists. And with the greatest respect to who's designed it, it's beyond the scope of most SMEs to actually devote the time and the resources. So that's one of the great benefits of EcoEasy is that it's very cost efficient. It reduces the time and the resources, and it also gives SMEs, that's why I kind of refer to it as the great democratizer, the expertise to actually fill in these reports. So, because I don't understand how they would be able to fill in this VSME framework without us, to be blunt.
And then Aidan, just on the adding some more complexity, right?
Yeah.
You've got then various different suppliers. So you've got this reliability, accuracy area
Yes.
you need to cover. And then you got the sprinkled of different suppliers. You can imagine a Chinese whispers scenario and you're trying to put your best foot forward. I can only imagine the possible things that could go wrong. And I can see how it can get complicated very, very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there's two. When you're talking about suppliers, I take that to mean the suppliers of the data, the reference data that goes into the reporting.
Yeah.
Right? And so there's an awful lot of data sources out there. We work with, we say, national standards, right, or international EU data points. So there are some not-for-profit, EU-approved providers of this data. And so that's what we're pulling in to help, let's say, I don't know, the emissions of a heavy goods vehicle, right? There's lots of, you can get that data points for that from the US, from Australia, from the UK. We take it from the EU, right? So the data points have been approved by, I suppose, the relevant bodies. But you're right, there's a lot of data points out there, and it's changing quite a lot. So what we've built in is this kind of, it's a clustering methodology. It's expectation maximization, a clustering methodology. So the idea is we track metrics that come in and we compare them to previous ones, right? And if we determine that this is an outlier, that something's come in that is beyond the expected range, then that gets flagged, and then then you have to pull a human back into the loop and say, okay, there's a data point that's just being ingested by the system and it doesn't seem to be fitting previous trends. We need to have a look at it.
When you're pitching the benefits to people that are very time poor, cost conscious, add every different other type of complication, is the benefit time, resources, kind of money allowing you, or I suppose spending more time on the problems you're really good at solving rather than working on things that you don't quite understand or you don't necessarily want to develop a skill in doing them when you can actually automate the process? Is that the pitch? Or when you're trying to get additional customers, what are you saying to them?
Yeah, well, look, at having gone through it ourselves, Mark, right? It is time, but it's also frustration, right? Because imagine like 92% of companies in Ireland have less than 10 employees. And the CEO is also the CFO. He or she is also the head of sustainability. They've got a job to do, a company to run, employees to manage, and they simply don't have the time or the expertise and probably the inclination to become experts in ESG reporting. So we take the frustration out of it, right? We simplify the concepts, we provide the data points that are used for the calculations, and we make recommendations that are in line with those companies' peers. So we will detect if a company's reporting figures that are significantly above or below their peers, and therefore we actually provide that reassurance as well that the client is actually answering accurately in a way that really is has minimized frustration and minimized the time required to do so.
The quality of the data is really important, because the quality of the data that gets reported up is going to be used to underpin an audit that is mandated now for large companies. And I suppose if you're an SME and you don't have the resources to become an expert on ESG, as well. It just means that there's going to be huge deviation in terms of the quality of information that is being reported on. And what we're doing is effectively we're making sure that that information is robust, and that therefore, if you think about the companies that are on top who need to report on the information, effectively there's quality control of the information that is being reported up. So not only are we reducing the frustration for the SME, we're also making it far more robust in terms of the supply chain, the reporting of that data.
So then the next question is how, with everything changing, so there feels like there's a new frontier model happening every week. There's a new update at least every 72 hours that feels significant. Then you've got the changes in ESG requirements and things like that. How do you stay up to date? And then do you pass that on to the end consumer that they don't have to pivot and things like this?
You're right. There are new models coming out every week, Mark, and it's a real challenge to stay up to date with them because some are, well built and, what they say they do, they actually do. But then there's a lot of vaporware out there as well. And we try to keep tabs of all the main models. For example, we're looking at one at the moment, which is Nixla, and it's a time series forecasting model. But what's really interesting to us as well is that it provides anomaly detection, which is very, very useful when we are trying to detect anomalies in a company's historic emissions, right, reporting. But how we do this, how we keep track of these models, right, being honest, is we look at the partnerships that they have established. And if they establish partnerships with trusted brands, then we decide, okay, it's worth testing those out. But if we see new models coming out and they haven't established trusted partnerships with, I'm talking about AWS, Azure, Oracle, Google, then we wait until they do. Because you simply couldn't do them all.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's just exhausting. And then the more you get into it, the least you know. That's the feeling I feel when the more you delve into it. Has there been anything again, you don't need to go into specifics here, but looking at the underlying tech, has there been things that you thought would be more straightforward to solve? And then the flip side, has there been more things that you've been working on that you thought would be more challenging, but actually became a lot more straightforward than you thought to solve, or in the kind of on the journey so far?
Yes, but not maybe the way you expected. At least on the tech side of things, right? We were expecting more challenges regarding the tech, but I think the rate of progress has been so quick that, issues like hallucinations and the likes, they're not really a problem for us. Right? We've a private LLM for each client, right? And we use this RAG technology, so it's quite accurate, we'll say, in the responses it gives. So I'm kind of happy with the tech, even though it changes a lot, right? I'm happy with its capabilities and the rate of progress. The challenge really is in trust. Two things: trust in the responses that are coming out and trust regarding data leakage. That's, the other concern that companies have. And so that's probably the more subjective challenge that we have to address. And we will find that, different companies and different personalities have higher or lower levels of trust of this technology. And that's just something that will come with time.
Yeah, and you probably answered it in the previous question. The more trusted partnerships you guys go and use cases and go on that journey, the more credibility will come from that. And it's just trying to build it slowly but surely. And I'm sure there's a pivot point or a landslide that will go either way when you hit that certain number. From the future side, I suppose you kind of answered this question already. For the technology evolving and improving, is that just keeping your eye out, getting feedback from customers, kind of having a testing bed for different options to say, well, actually, this is now working better, we can progress to that in the future?
Yeah, look, we have to keep our finger on the pulse in terms of new innovations. the innovations even in the past 2 years have been quite significant. So we can never sit back and rest on our laurels and say, look, we've done enough. I suppose being honest, right? The market is being dominated by a few players. So I don't expect, but if it does happen, fine, we will pivot. I do expect, that the main players will continue to have their lead in the marketplace. And so we will follow their tech and try to leverage as best we can. In terms of how it will transform ESG reporting, I do expect that we're going to end up plugging into an awful lot of systems within a company, which we have already anticipated in EcoEasy, like plugging into the financial reporting system, into the CRM, into the HR. And so you get more real-time data in terms of your carbon footprint, and therefore you'll be able to provide real-time recommendations as to how to mitigate that. And I think ultimately ESG reporting is going to become like real-time reporting. And that's what I see.
Yeah, I could see how people will start to expect that, and then people will start to feel more comfortable. You've been listening to the AI Ireland podcast in the run-up to the AI Awards on the 26th of November 2024. We've been speaking to Muiris and Aidan of EcoEasy, who are finalists for this year's awards. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today.
Cheers, Mark. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Cheers, Mark.
On the 26th of November, join us for the 6th Annual AI Awards at the Marco Hotel in Dublin. This year's event promises to be our largest and most impressive yet, with over 300 community members in attendance and over 48 applications of AI in action. This truly is an incredible world-class event, and we are inviting you to this event. Experience the excitement live, because we're going to be capturing this with a world-class film crew, and it's going to be streamed online. However, if you want to join us in person, book your table now, because opportunities are limited. If you're interested in sponsoring this year's awards, please contact me at Mark@AI Awards for more information and see the best in class of AI applications on the island of Ireland.